Middle Cough.
Hey, behaves.
Here we go. Recording this podcast on a Thursday, live on YouTube with an interview on the show today. John, in addition to all the stuff we're going to talk about, we have one of the most respected people and coaches as a person and as an offensive coach and an overall program guider on our show today. Oregon State head coach Jonathan Smith joins us on the show today.
I won't tell him that he lost me $500 last weekend attending the game, just because I was all in on. By then I knew he was coming on the podcast, but thank God for Fresno State, I was able to win 60% of it back. So we're all good, Jonathan.
You're not going to bring that up, you're saying?
No. We'll let sleeping dogs lie. Is that the saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on the YouTube, that interview, we recorded it on Wednesday, will be in the audio version of the podcast, which you can get down in the link below. That interview will also be loaded on YouTube. So if you want to watch Jonathan Smith, we'll put that up. You don't have to be a college football fan or a Pac-12 fan or an Oregon State fan to like it. We just talk we talk about him. He was a great quarterback, played with, Chad Johnson was on his team when he was there. But just, I think his perspective on quarterbacking, his perspective on football, his perspective on program building, on leadership, why as a play caller he doesn't call the plays, even though that's where, he got his notice at first at Washington. So a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah. The absolute man. I'm a big fan, and I'm pretty confident this now this is his alma mater, but don't be shocked one day, people, if he's coaching at a bigger school. UCLA. Yeah,
he's from Pasadena. But that'd be very attractive. It's hard, but you know what? The other side of that is the guys who have left Oregon State, like Dennis Erickson and Mike Riley, we have to go through their careers, but I don't think they've ever had it as good again as they had it at Oregon State. I think it is a good place.
It's a good gig.
Yeah, UCLA's got some decisions to make. I mean, Chip's last year of his contract is next year.
They ain't extended.
And his buyout is $9 million, and his buyout doesn't expire until January 15th. That's a hell of a poison pill in a contract because you don't want to wait that long to fire a coach, but you also don't want to pay a coach $9 million to go away.
Yeah. Well, what did Tomlin say? I want volunteers, not hostages. It feels like they hold the defensive coordinator, Jerry Azzinaro, hostage and not allow him to ever be seen or talked to the media. And he has
free country, John.
In 4 years. It's a free country. Except I think in the last couple years, I think we'd push back and say, that's not true, Chip. But, yeah, I mean, Chip, 15-25, I think his total record is. Got his absolute. That game, I was at the gym the other day, and I think keep like ESPNU on one of the TVs. So sometimes I'll look up, and it'll just be a football game, but it's always from the previous Saturday, like midweek. I'll look up and it'll be like Oregon, Colorado. I look up, it's Utah, and they were beating the shit out of it. I mean, it was just. Well. You guys are like our little brother. We are going to shove you around. And I said, go Whittingham, I love you.
This podcast is sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka, America's original craft vodka. In 1995, Tito Beverage built his own distillery. Couldn't get investors, John, so he racked up 19 credit cards, acquired the first legal distillery in Texas, and started pouring for free at fundraisers. Next thing you know, he's entering contests he doesn't even want to be in. Turns out it's like the World Awards. Double gold. He wins it all. Number one. And then he's in Trader Joe's. And now the whole thing's rolling.
I think that's why we relate. We're not quite on Tito's level right now, but we were also told once upon a time you guys are not good enough to ever host a morning show.
That's why
you two village idiots didn't believe. Like Tito, he couldn't get anyone to believe, yet we believed and he believed, and the cream always rises, baby. Tito's #1 vodka in America. Here's what I need you to do. Make sure you do this all weekend long as you're having cocktails. Tweet at us, link us in your tweets, link us in your Instagram videos, link us in your Insta stories when you're having a glass of Tito's with cranberry, with soda water, with lemonade, with a dirty martini, whatever you're drinking. Show us.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Tito's loves it. And you love Tito's. Tito's distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. Podcast also brought to you by MyBookie.ag, promo code Hammond, the #1. MyBookie.ag, promo code Hammond, the #1. Will they double that deposit up to $1,000? If you decline the bonus, you can still use the promo code Ham1. If you accept the bonus, you have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds.
I got the itch on Wednesday night. I'm like, I just nothing's doing it for me. I'm like, I need a little juice. Like I watch Warriors Hornets. I'm like, I'll throw $200 on the Warriors -6. And it worked. I won $180. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. You can gamble on basketball. You can gamble on, obviously, baseball's over now, college football, and the NFL. And our lock of the week, turns out, he's got a little banged up finger. He's not, I wouldn't say 100% healthy. So MyBookie.ag, we have the Chargers. But here's the good thing, and I texted you this when I saw it yesterday. We got them at -1. Chargers, -1 at Philadelphia. Tough place to play, though. I don't know if the fans are huge believers in their squad, but the line now is -2. So that, to me, is a good sign. Like, I think a lot of the sharps saw value. People start gambling on the Chargers. Now, he is limited in practice, so he's got a little finger issue, which is not nothing, on a throwing hand. But it's something to keep an eye on, Herbert. We're praying for you.
The good news on Justin Herbert is he's got a huge arm, so even like 85% health, he still has enough arm to play in an NFL game, right? You would hope.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
would
way
say
I'm
this.
justifying it.
Well, if the Chargers lose to the Eagles, and when we got a -1, so they would have to lose. I mean, worst case, they lose by 1, we're good. But I mean, you lose by several points, they would feel like a team that is just crumbling.
Wait, say that again. If the Chargers can't. The Chargers are -1.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So they cannot lose by any.
They cannot lose. Yeah. Excuse me. But if they cannot cover 1 point, so they either tie, right? We're in trouble. Then no one scores in overtime, or they lose.
Yeah.
It will be one of the bigger stories. Like everyone was, giving Brandon Staley and Herbert, including ourselves, kind of a reach around. They would all of a sudden be 4-4 and trending in a direction that is. It's one thing to lose to Belichick and the Ravens. It's another thing to go to Philadelphia, a team that looks like a 6-7 win team, and lose. Right? The Chargers need this win. A little must-win category, guy.
There's a few teams out there that we can get into, but there are a few teams out there, and I think it's happening. I mean, it happens in the NFC, but I would say in the AFC there are good teams, teams that look like playoff teams that need to win, right? Because right now the Chargers are the 7th seed at 4-3. I don't think Pittsburgh, who's 4-3, is going to make the playoffs, but there's New England, there's Kansas City, there's Cleveland, there's Indy still out there.
Sam Darnold probably not going to play, so that's New England's going to win 5-4.
Yeah, exactly. And if Sam Darnold was going to play, New England was going to win. So
you think Belichick's losing sleep to him?
Yeah, there's the AFC is filled with teams that need to win. You're right. That's a good point on the Chargers.
Didn't Sam once famously say, "I'm seeing ghosts," and I'm pretty sure it was against Bill?
He was. Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did. But
so, yeah,
I hated that for him. That he just a moment of honesty got used against him that way.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's caused a lot of people to see ghosts, right? With different random shit going on in the secondary.
Absolutely.
You think Bill would rather see Sam this weekend or PJ Walker?
I mean, I haven't watched a lot of PJ since the AAF. He does run around. I do remember his debut this year. He was like 4 of 19 passing the football. I don't think Bill cares one way or the other.
I don't think so either.
Carlos says Browns or Bengals. That's actually on my to-do list for the topics later in the show today. I want to get to that too because that's another big one. But, John, we got a lot of people in the chat bringing it up. Obviously, the Henry Ruggs situation is something we talked a lot about the other day. It's something that we followed very closely. We both watched the not just Rich Bisaccia's press conference, but Derek Carr's press conference on Wednesday. I thought both handled things really well. Whether or not Bisaccia can become the head coach of the Raiders, time will tell. But one thing we know is Derek Carr is the franchise quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. And he's gotten a lot of opportunities to act and play like a franchise quarterback this year. He's played like it. He's acted like it. I don't know what more the Raiders could want from this guy. He's given them everything they need.
Well, we bullshitting a little bit, right? We just touched on the AFC has got a lot of question marks. It is kind of the opposite of the NFC where there are already 5. It feels like locks to make the playoffs. And really, once Rodgers comes back, 3 or 4 powerhouse teams. Where is it inconceivable? Like we were talking after it just happened. The Ruggs thing is going to be very difficult. But then you start looking at the AFC. Now I don't know if they can get the 1 seed, but if they win the division and they are a top 3 seed in the AFC, how does he not win the MVP? When you factor in, like, he just has 2 things that happened to him during the season and to keep the team together. It's just like other guys are just not going to have that in the bag. And it's kind of just one of those, they say the MVP in basketball is a lot with narratives and stories. Like it would be an incredible story to keep the Raiders. You lose your coach, but again, non-football wise, and then for this to happen, and I hate to admit this, but I couldn't help myself because I saw TMZ tweet the video of Ruggs on the, they had live video right after it happened, and he's on the curb with his girlfriend, kind of swearing and crying, and I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't help myself, and it's just, I'm sure they all are going to see it, and then when you find out him telling, I mean, it makes sense, right? Henry was at Topgolf. Derek and Hunter play a lot of golf. Derek's a good player. Him taking video, sending it to those guys on a group text, and clearly, I mean, they can just add it up. 3 hours later, 3.5 hours later, this happens. I mean, even Derek kind of, articulated it yesterday. Like, listen, it was a little easier to compartmentalize the last time. This is a little bit harder. It's
not even in the same realm.
Yeah, it's not in the same world. So it's really, you could tell they were uncomfortable, him and Rich, talking about like new opportunities. It's just like, it just feels a little.
There was the question like, are you going to talk to Zay Jones about the opportunity for him now? It's like, no.
Yeah.
No. And even Derek said it. And I think, for anybody, like we said it the other day when we talked about it, like it's weird to be talking about this and football at the same time. And Derek said it, he gets it, but that's what we do. That's what you do.
Derek, he's like, I don't have a choice. We have a game Sunday, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we got to practice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not one of those. I think the hardest part about tragedy in general is anyone who's lost grandparents, lost friends, lost, parents, lost whoever, that you don't know what's coming, it can rattle you. But once you've been through it, I don't think numb's the wrong word, but you realize like the sun comes up the next day. Things keep happening, and we all grieve differently. And you and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday, I think off. Obviously, we didn't do a podcast yesterday. But like you get to a point where every human being, if they just kind of lock in, compartmentalize, can get through something. It's hard to get through several things, and it's just going to be difficult. Like it might not catch up to them this weekend, but I do think it's going to be. There's going to be a week where you go, yeah, it was just bound to like. They just maybe lost focus during the week, and it's very understandable. Like sometimes when you lose focus during the week, and you're a good team, you're like, well, they just lost to the Jags. You're like, well, they weren't really locked in this week. It's like, I get it. Like, it shit happens. This one will be like, yeah, we probably weren't as focused as our heads weren't in the right spot.
Yeah.
You
know? The Gruden thing was, I'm not trying to compare at all. So I'll put it this way. The thing with football is you just, because the sport is, with anything you do, really, anything you do at a very, very high level requires 100% of your attention and your detail and your energy and your emotion. And football's no different. And when something happens that reminds you that the thing that you spend all of your time doing is not the most important thing in the world, when you get perspective, in some ways, perspective is a bad thing when you're trying to do something really hard, because you need to be in your bubble, only focused on that thing. And so when
isn't it why football coaches often say like, wait, it's election night, right? It's like they know, but they don't truly even care, right?
They forget what day, they know the days of the weeks based on like, oh, well, schedule. Every Tuesday is an off day, but they don't know really what's
Thursday's
happening.
Red Zone day, Friday's third down day,
Yes. So when something happens, this horrible, that brings a perspective, and this kind of perspective, it makes football hard. And that's where you just go back to Derek, who is, I thought he said some things that not everybody could say. Like, I think for some people it'd be hard to say. You know what?
Saban said some similar things
about
I think what you're going to say. Sorry to cut you off.
No. I wish I'd watched Saban, but just like, not anybody can feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, Henry's the one that did wrong here, but I still love him, right? Which is what Derek said.
Yeah.
You're going to get some of the, well, how could you say that? What about the person that died? And you're trying to capture everything. And I thought he did a really good job of that, while being that story rattled me, as it makes everybody. And I don't know any of the involved people, and so he's handled it really well. I think back to your point on, or were you going to say something on that? I was just going to jump to it.
No.
The MVP portion of this is, even without any of what's going on around them, who are the MVP candidates this year in the NFL? Derrick Henry out, Lamar Jackson,
Brady
has
25 touchdowns, and
Kyler,
Matt Stafford's 22-4. His team might be the 1 seed.
And I'd say, Derrick, from a football standpoint, is he's matching up with all those guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Here, statistically, though, again, touchdowns aren't everything, but like Stafford and Brady have 25 and 22 touchdowns. Now Derrick's coming off a bye. He has 12. He has 12 touchdowns. I mean, like Stafford has 10 more touchdowns.
Yeah,
and a better record.
But if this team, this team is the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC, his numbers will be there.
Back to Henry for a second. Talking to people in the league with him coming out that scouted him, character really high. Talking to people with the Raiders, they really liked him. Like he was, like they valued him. I think when you have someone that you viewed as like this good kid and this guy with this bright future and was kind of coming into his own, and Saban was asked the same thing of like, kind of reiterated the message Derrick gave of like, listen, this is an inexcusable action, and he's going to pay the price. But like, I feel deeply for Henry, his life being ruined, and his family. He has a young daughter. Like we were talking a lot about Dante Stallworth when we did our podcast on Tuesday, because everything was kind of fresh and the information was coming in. As the information came out, it shows there's nothing in common. Like Henry Ruggs is going to do 10, 15 years in prison. Like this guy's going
maybe
away
more.
For a long yeah.
I mean, because we're talking about multiple, like the Class B felony for the DUI,
illegal firearm. I mean, there's so much
death,
shit.
Right? It's just one thing. There's driving 156 miles an hour.
The other thing is the video I clicked on that I'm not proud of is the visual in the background of the burning car and her being in there with her dog. Like there's you just don't come back.
Stuck.
It's over.
Right. That detail.
His life is over.
People tried to get her out, but she was stuck.
And this is self-inflicted, but it's just, if you know someone and you're close with them and you think they're a good person, and then they ruin their life, that gets back to what I was talking about. It just would rattle you. And Derrick's not alone. I mean, there's got to be other guys in the wide receiver room, his coaches. I mean, it's just... So his stats, maybe back to the MVP conversation, don't have to be quite as close, but he's pretty far off. Like if he throws 30 touchdowns and some of the other guys have 50, but they go 12-5, like would that be enough? He might have to get a little higher.
Probably not. Yeah. But I also think it's,
and they're probably a little more inclined to run it, even with the new offensive coordinator. I mean, their second best offensive player beside their quarterback, it's Waller and Jacobs. If Jacobs healthy and now that Drake looks good, you should run it. They don't have a great pass blocking offensive line, so I think it's a little easier to do that. They have a lot of tight ends. And now without Henry, maybe their passing game is just going to be a little like one thing Derrick said, he's like, listen, I've never seen a guy practice harder than Zay Jones, but part of him practicing hard, Henry got every rep. Like he practiced like scout team and doing other stuff. Like Henry got the main reps, every single one of them, unless Henry got tired. So from a football standpoint, like there is just, a big drop off between Henry Ruggs and like if this doesn't happen, there's not a soul involved in football that would take Zay Jones over Henry Ruggs. Like there's a huge gap, right?
Yeah.
And that's no indication on like. Turns out Zay Jones like a solid backup. Rich was talking. He plays on special teams. I mean, Henry was a top. What do you say? Like immediate 3 deep threat in the league. If Tyreek still won, he might be.
Yeah,
2.
I mean, he'd become one of the top big play receivers in the NFL already this year, and probably could get better at it. I just listen to you talk. I think Derek Carr's having an MVP season, whether or not he wins an MVP. Right? If this team is somehow able to, what he's worth to that franchise.
Yeah, I agree.
When they come to him when they go to Mark Davis with the contract negotiation, it's going to be hard to argue on paper what Derek Carr is worth to the Las Vegas Raiders. This isn't the first. This is the most devastating in the line of things that he's had to deal with as the Raiders quarterback. It's different from all the other things. But the list of things that he's done as the Raiders quarterback and gotten better as a player, whatever it looks like this year, he's having an MVP level season for that franchise.
Did you see him talk to like these little kids on their podcast that looked like he had them over to their house?
I only saw it just as I just literally got retweeted in my timeline.
Yeah, he reiterated, like, the kid asked him, you've said before you would only play for the Raiders. Are you really serious? He's like, I'm dead serious. I don't think he's joking. He's like, I've already made so much money. I'll just play golf. Like, I don't want to play anywhere else. Now, if push ever comes to shove, you actually have to make, like, you're going to retire from the NFL when you're playing really well. If whatever so-and-so team wants you that actually is pretty good, like Sean Payton's on the phone with you, like, Derek, I really believe in you, or whatever the situation is.
Right.
We'll see. But, like, it does feel that he's entrenched himself enough where, one, how would they ever upgrade? And two, like, how would they want another guy that's just passionate about their brand? Like, it doesn't even.
He is invaluable to them. An organization that doesn't have that many people that stand up for them. Right.
And he's really
invaluable.
And if they don't hire Rich, he's really one of the, for some of these open jobs. Like the Broncos job's open. The Broncos job, prestige-wise, it's just they've been more consistent in our adult life than the Raiders, right? They have a lot of money. They're in theory stable, even though their owner, they got some issues there. But, like, they have no quarterback. There's no quarterback on the horizon. Joe Judge gets fired. It's like, well, there's no quarterbacks to draft. We just fucking signed Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Derek, you could argue, of all the jobs that are open, is without question the most valuable asset on the coaching market.
Yeah, let's say the Giants job opens, the Dolphins job opens, the Texans job is open.
Denver.
Denver. Is that what you said?
Well, Fangio's gonna get fired, right?
Yeah, Denver. Surely I'm missing somebody, but
Zimmer, Cousins. You see that guy the other night?
Yeah, could be. I did. Yeah, I mean, Derek makes the job more attractive, and it's when you don't have to worry about your best player. Not only is he not a negative, he is a positive. I don't know how you MVP.
I threw some cash on him this weekend.
-2.
I got it -3.
Okay.
But it does feel, watching them talk, they're going to go out there early. I do think it's going to catch up. There's going to be a week where maybe you're confident and they just lay an egg. Like, that is probably inevitable. But I could see this week they could get over. And they're playing the Giants, who have a serious – they shut down the building today, guy. Shut down the building because of COVID outbreak. So they got their own issues. And they got a bunch of injuries. Saquon's already been out because he's hurt /COVID. They got a lot of problems.
Like, and the Raiders are off a bye.
Yeah, they are playing a team that is just Waller's back, Jacobs back. What wasn't that one thing Rich said yesterday? Is like, we're completely healthy.
Yeah, clean practice. That's right. And he's on top of it. Like, I was impressed with him. Whatever. He's not trying to impress me, but Cam Worrell, our buddy who played in the league, tweeted at me or retweeted it and just said, special teams coaches don't get enough credit, don't get enough looks to be head coaches. And it's probably true, right? You've been around them. Like, they're different. They're creative people. They got some time, but they're passionate by and large. Yeah. Special teams coaches are pretty passionate guys, and they know their whole roster because they coach everybody. They have to know everybody who can help them. I don't know. I had nothing else to add to that other than I thought that was an interesting insight.
A lot of times they don't have the headset, so they're hearing everything that's going on the sideline all game long. They're talking.
They are on the sideline. They're always looking people in the eye, right?
Yeah.
And everything they do is high pressure because they only get a couple of shots a game to do their thing, right? You're the offensive coordinator. You're going to get, I don't know, 40 to 60, depending what league you're playing in. Chances to 90. I mean, UCLA ran 90 plays against Oregon. But you're a special teams guy. You get like a few shots a game. There's a lot of pressure on a special teams play.
Yeah.
Punts, kicks, returns. It's just.
It'd be nice to see the 49ers will run a fake every once in a while.
Your boy Trent Cannon's been catching the football.
Well, I mean, everyone catches kickoffs.
Everyone now is just into the.
Everyone catches kickoffs.
Arms out. Okay, so speaking of good head coaches, really good, really impressive, really well-respected head coaches. Jonathan Smith was on the show, and what do you want to say? What should we say about Jonathan Smith? I mean, I've been around him for a few years. We know a guy that works for him, and it's not uncommon that there are a lot of people in that business, that are very well respected. But I would say one thing about Jonathan, he falls in the category of guy that people really like, that people say, oh, what a good dude. And there's no caveat where they're saying what a good dude because they don't have anything good to say about him as a coach. They're saying what a good dude. And on top of that, I think he's a really good coach. That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah, I mean, I just swear by the guys that worked for Pete at Boise. And I know he worked for Pete longer at Washington, but he started at Boise. And I just think when you were involved in that operation, I'd buy stock in you. And it was the first time I had ever talked to him. But look at what Brian Harstins, who was an OC at Texas, takes over Boise, and he kept Boise good, and now he's killing it at Auburn. Kellen Moore is crushing it right now. I mean, he's dominating. And to me, he was a player then, but he was like a player coach while he was on the team. You know, the way people talked about him. His dad was a famous coach. Kirby Moore, Kellen's brother, I've been told, who's at Fresno State, people swear by him as like an up-and-coming guy. I'm sure I'm leaving some of them out, but who are names? I mean, these guys they're successful.
Pete Kwiatkowski got a lot of credit, even though he was the co-DC at Washington. He's at Texas right now. Has not become a head coach. I mean, Boise guys that preceded Pete, right? There was a line of really good head coaches: Houston Nutt, Dirk Cutter, Dan Hawkins. Of
Justin
Boise
Wilcox,
guys.
the Boise guy. I mean,
Justin
I know
Wilcox.
You know,
he's a good coach. I mean,
he's a good coach. Yeah, people think very highly of him.
Yeah.
To me, this is the closest. I would say Kellen and Jonathan. A lot of guys have been defensive guys. I guess Harsin is an offensive guy. Even though when you watch Harsin talk, he feels like a former defensive end or something. He does not feel like an offensive guy. To me, when you talk to Jonathan or you watch Kellen Moore talk, they feel very PD Boise. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. I want this guy to get the UCLA job, even though I know he loves his own job. But yeah, that would be badass.
Yeah, I think he could. You know, he's done a 4-year rebuild at Oregon State, and they still got some stuff to do. They play Colorado this week, looking for their 6th win, trying to get to 6-3. But he has done a slow and steady and methodical rebuild at a place that's hard to win. And he's done it. And he came from UW where they were getting 4-star. He's getting 4-star. I think he recruited 3 4-star quarterbacks at Washington, including Jake Browning, who was a 4-star.
Didn't he take over the program when Gary Anderson, like week 2 or 3, just quit?
Yeah, I mean, he took over the year after that, not during the year.
Yeah, I mean, he took over like at the end of the season or whatever. But
right.
He took over a program that just had some weird shit going on, right?
Yeah, coach just up and left. Corey Hall took over.
What happened?
And that's what he walked
into. You remember
into.
The reasoning behind that?
There never really was any clear reasoning. Although somebody just wrote a college football writer just wrote a Gary Anderson article the other day, because he's done it twice, I think, up and left, like left money on the table.
Like him and the AD weren't on the same page type.
You know, thing? There's never been. I don't think it was that. But I don't know. But so Jonathan takes over, and Jonathan takes over, and they were bad, and then they got less bad, and then they got good, and now they're really good. So I've been picking the Beavs, big fans of the Beavs. You went and saw him play the other day at Cal, and here's our conversation with Jonathan Smith on the pod. For those of you listening to the podcast, for those of you watching the podcast, you're seeing it live, and that's going to be edited in later, and that video will also be up on its own on YouTube. I got a bug in here. Is my backdrop too bright? Is that the light coming through there too? I can put something in there. Hold on. Since this is getting edited anyway. Help a little? Not really. What are you looking at?
Just the comments, people just screaming at each other.
It's what the comments are good for. They like take a little heat off of you, you know?
People argue, you know? That's what internet comment sections are for.
All right, on the audio version of the podcast, this will be the Jonathan Smith interview, but we're going to dive into now, John, the return. George Kittle, as of Thursday, I saw some video from some of the Niners reporters. He's out there catching passes. If he gets through the practice, good to go. He's expected to play on Sunday, so we expect him to play on Sunday, and that would be a big deal for this 49ers team.
Yeah, man, I was talking to someone who was at the Bears game who works in the NFL and said this was the first half, and his text message was like, you can really feel their lack of George Kittle. In the second half, obviously, the run game got going. I don't know if you saw, like, Orlovsky and different people were tweeting some of the sweet run plays, and it's badass, right? But when you add a third element, right, because it's Dwelly in there, but instead of Dwelly, you get Kittle, Juszczyk and Trent Williams combined are Trent's been to 8 Pro Bowls. Juszczyk's been to 5. I mean, we were talking 13 Pro Bowls. And someone in my sponsors was like, stop using Pro Bowls to validate their talent. They don't mean anything. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about 2 guys that are true Pro Bowlers, right? Trent Williams is a first ballot Pro Bowler. Juszczyk is the only Pro Bowl fullback. Like, you know what I mean when I'm talking about these guys. I'm not using them to talk about Alex Smith. It's just I don't want to look up their all pros. Like, they're elite players, right? But when you add Kittle, who's the best blocking back, I saw today right before we hopped on, Elijah Mitchell is practicing. So he's going to play this week. Fred Wilson Jr. is back, so they're getting some running back reinforcements, and he was a good player. So you just get better at running back, where Elijah Mitchell in some of those clips were like, he's made for this scheme. If the Niners could get a redo on Trey Sermon, they would do a redo because they got their starting running back. But you add George to this for their run game, which is already kind of clicking, it's going to be better. And then, like, let's face it, he's a huge help in the passing game, even if he only catches 5 to 6 balls on a given game. It's usually like 5 for 70, right? With one of the plays being a 20-yarder, but where he takes a guy for a ride for like 7 yards and kind of sets the tone, and then he does this, scoops his mouth, and the fucking team gets going, right? You just miss his, just his violence, his ferocity, he's just an easy target for Jimmy because he's closer, right? Jimmy can be a little hit or miss down the field,
Yeah, and he's big. We're talking about one of the leading receivers in the NFL.
Yeah,
right?
He's Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, and George Kittle are the most talented guys on this team. Especially if you factor in, like, people are a little down on 54, who's having, hit or miss season. But I do think it's a little harder when you got bodies all over you, than he doesn't just get to run free. I'm defending. We lose Haberman. I don't know where guy went. Am I on solo right now? Haberman, where'd you go? Guy, where'd you go?
I actually just closed the browser. It wasn't even, nothing failed. I just closed it. Anyway, but you got bodies all over you.
Yeah, so it's just, you got 3 players, Fred Warner being down, that, you're very dependent on their success, right? When Trent Williams is playing, as you saw those clips, he's tossing bodies. The clip that Orlovsky, that didn't get enough credit, he didn't just grab Roquan, he then threw him to the ground. I mean, it went viral, like Trent Williams is by far the best left tackle in the league.
Yeah.
Well, Nick Bosa has been an elite, no doubt about it, Pro Bowler this year. Like, you don't even need to look at a box score. You just watch him play. You're like, holy fuck, this guy's everywhere. And that's George. And let's face it, like, he is kind of injury prone now. So we've talked about this earlier. Like, are you confident that he's just got the rest of the season in him? It's just the way he plays, he gets banged up. They have to find a way to just get him to play every week, because if they want to make a comeback on this thing, which they can, because the Vikings, I think, play the Ravens this week. Like, the Vikings could just get knocked out. That 7 spot could be wide open. Yeah. And you really just might have to get to 9.
Well, and part of the whole, like, Kittle has effectively 2 years left on his contract, right? Like, this is year 2. $16 million cap hit each of the next 2 years. So what you said, like, even though we are talking about it in the mindset of winning right now, winning next week, this guy is also pretty critical, I'd say, to the development of your quarterback. Like, somebody asked me, you just talk about how do you get this team better for the future? Well, one of the things is, and we talk about it all the time, if you're going to have a quarterback, a young quarterback, part of your job is to surround that quarterback with people that are good. Part of the reason Trent Williams is worth the money he's worth, right? Part of what can make him worth the money he's worth is if he's protecting Trey Lance. If Trent Williams is making his money protecting Jimmy Garoppolo on a sub 500 football team, that's not really getting you anything. But if you're 500 and it's about getting Trey Lance ready for his future as an NFL quarterback, it's a big deal. Like, I would say, looking back, the Raiders spent a ton of money, remember, and draft capital on protecting Derek Carr early in his career, and it worked. Now Derek's, time goes on. You don't keep Rodney Hudson. You lose guys. Now it's on him to elevate the team with not as good of an offensive line. But early in a guy's career, and Kittle's the same way. Like, part of what makes Kittle potentially worth his money is if he's there every day for Trey Lance, every day for Trey Lance in the run game, every day for Trey Lance in the pass game. Like, this is part of the next 2 years of Trey Lance's development. Some critical years for the 49ers. Yeah. Is George Kittle being there healthy to help him? Is Deebo Samuel being there healthy to help him? Is Juszczyk being there, right? Is Ayuk being there?
I would sign. One thing I would do this offseason, once you get rid of Jimmy's money and you got a little wiggle room with some extra cash, to me, another tight end to go with George. Like Zach Ertz, a free agent. Can I get him 1 year for $8 million, $9 million? Something like I'm in the acquisition business of some firepower that is closer. Like, I'm not going to go buy an outside wide receiver. I've already invested in that. I'm not saying don't maybe draft a guy in the second or third round, but I am getting another tight end who can help in the passing game, because they are a quarterback's best friend.
And who can take some pressure off of Kittle.
And take some pressure off Kittle, yeah. Look at the 3 young quarterbacks that crushed it. Really 4. But Lamar Jackson, his best, receiving target has been Mark Andrews. Obviously Mahomes, Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. And Josh Allen, Dawson Knox has been awesome. And even, Herbert, he's got 2 sweet wide receivers, but Keenan Allen runs routes closer like a tight end, right?
And he had Hunter Henry.
But to me, Keenan Allen does like he operates like a tight end.
He's got tight end tendencies, John.
Yeah, he's working guys,
Yeah. Yeah, big targets, guys that can help you erase mistakes, imperfection. Exactly.
Do you think Tedford walked by Wilcox like, bro, you need some Keenan Allens, bro. Go get yourself a Marshawn.
A Marshawn and a Javid Best and a Shane Vereen.
Yeah.
And a CJ Anderson.
And a Mitchell Schwartz and an Alex Mack.
Yeah. And a Kendrick's brother. Which one do they have? Michael?
Yeah. And a Cam Jordan. Like, they had a lot of NFL talent. You want to win 10 games, you need NFLers.
Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers. So anyway,
that was short lived. They had a lot of shitty ones too.
Yeah, they missed some opportunities. But anyway, that's one of the big things. It's easy to find things to watch for in that game this week, but that would be one of them, John. That would definitely be one of them.
I think the Niners win. I think they win potentially convincingly. If Cardinals are in shambles, AJ Green COVID list. Hopkins, Cliff said earlier this week. He doesn't practice that often either, but he often plays. That hamstring, which kind of clearly got tight last week, I don't think he's going to play. Edmonds is banged up. Kyler's been in a boot. Obviously JJ's out. Like, it's just kind of hitting them all at once. These are important fucking players, right?
Yeah.
AJ Green's making a ton of plays for them. Hopkins is just a touchdown machine. Kyler's a star. Like, you can't. The Niners have hit this several times. Like, you go into a game and just for whatever reason you're missing 7 of your best 10 guys. Like, you're just going to lose. If you don't, then Cliff Kingsbury's just coach of the year. Like, the Niners lose this game. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I just
with Cliff all those guys out, would losing this game be worse than losing to the Bears?
Yes, because at least you're like, well, Justin Fields is his best game of a pro.
Made some plays.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. Colt McCoy and Cliff Kingsbury beat you. With who? Yeah, Rondale Moore was our best wide receiver. They had to bring a couple guys from practice squad and some other random guys on defense. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, because you'd say, guys, you just got this gift that you needed. You needed this. It was like when we were watching the Dolphins last week going, Tua, for this 14 parlay, will you just throw a pick six? And then Tua throws a pick. That was almost a pick six. It's a prayer. When you need it, it doesn't happen all the time. And they've got it right now.
Two teams that are kind of in shambles got gifts. And you have no excuse not to take advantage of it. The Chiefs and the 49ers. Like, we don't get Kyler Murray and Aaron Rodgers? It's okay. I text somebody with the Chiefs, like, yeah, I'm not complaining about it, right? I mean, they're not like, shucks, we would have loved to get all the Chiefs fans to see Aaron. No, you want to see your team win.
Avatar Singh says, when things start going bad for the Cardinals, it explodes, never stops. History. It's true. I mean, when things go bad for the Cardinals, the Cardinals' lows are low.
Still think, I still stand by. It's going to be very, very difficult, even for an implosion, for them not to end up with 10 wins. And I just don't see how 10 wins you're not dancing, right?
10 wins you're dancing in the NFC. The AFC, but in the NFC you should be dancing with 10 wins.
I think even in the AFC, 10 wins this year, because it doesn't feel like that many teams are going to win 13 games, right? The Rams, the Packers might not, depending on how long he's out. Rams, Tampa, probably 13 plus. Who in the AFC is winning 13 games?
Well, why do you have to win 13 for 10 to not make? I mean, just people have to win 11.
Yeah, but I'm just getting like, you have usually your powerhouse teams, and then maybe like one team wins 11, and a lot win between that. Normally 9-7, 10-6 is like a sweet spot, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams right now that are. I won't even count Denver. I said it earlier. Cleveland, Kansas City, New England, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals. So those 6 teams competing for 3 playoff spots in the AFC.
The Bengals would be a double whammy this week, because if they win, they'd be 6-3, and they'd kind of knock Cleveland the fuck out.
I think Cleveland is in danger. Cleveland, now maybe Cleveland wins and they win their next 4, and then then maybe they're good. They play the Bengals, the Pats, the Lions, the Ravens. But Cleveland might also lose and be 4-5, which doesn't eliminate you. But there was a lot of pressure on this team this year, and a lot of expectations. And I still think they're a good team. They might even be better than they were last year, but it's just not working for them, right? It's just like I'm watching them going, it's not. I'm not saying they should change anything dramatic. I'm just saying it's not clicking and leading to wins the way it did for them last year. Now they got Odell's just home. By the time you listen to this, maybe he's on, I don't know, the Raiders or something. But
that a little different circumstances, because the Browns have had a lot of injuries. If Baker's shoulder doesn't get hurt, if Nick Chubb never misses games, they're too talented to not end up probably like 10-7. And the Raiders, the year after they made the playoffs, just were not good. Right? I watched the Browns. I mean, they're just dealing with a lot of injuries. I mean, they're playing with a guy that was in the AAF as their starting running back when they have the best starting backfield in the league. But it does feel a little bit like that. Anytime, like the Ravens or the Steelers or even the Patriots, like, yeah, pressure. It's like we walk in the building, there's pressure. We win. We try to make the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
When you're a one-off playoff team, and the Browns were, right? They made the playoffs one time in basically 2 decades. Everyone just puts them back in. And every once in a while, it's got to start somewhere, right? You just start making the playoffs, and you go out like Seattle did it. The Rams started doing it once McVay got there. But it shows you, like, more often than not, like, you can just be a one-off squad. And it's like, who knows, right? If they miss, they're just, it's hard. And they're not – it's not like they have Lamar Jackson or Herbert be like, at the end of the day, we got this guy for the next 10 years, we're always going to be in the mix. Like, I don't know. Like, you guys are already hesitant to give this guy any money, and now he's injured. Mm-hmm. And then think about this offseason. Baker has to have labrum surgery. That's usually one of those you're in the sling with the tennis ball for a long time. Like, it's not like, he's going to get to work at OTAs. Like, I don't know. And I heard someone say, I was listening to Sando with Russillo, and he said, well, one thing that the Browns have been good at is, like, disrespecting their players contract-wise, but making them still feel wanted. Separate from Odell, like the Niners used to be good at this with like Willis and Joe Staley. Like they would never let him get close to free agency. They would pay him a lot in like a fake contract. While it was still a lot of money to them, it was always under market. That they could just next year Baker's on the 5th-year option, and then the following year franchise. And the way it works out, like 2 years, $50 million, so $25 million a year. You just kind of ride that out, which is probably what they're going to end up doing.
Yeah, which is not a great place to be. When you are in a position to really build something, you got the coach, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've got the coach. Well, that's how they should think about it right now. I think they've got the coach.
Impressive.
They had this core. This was going to be a big year for them. This was going to be a big year for them. It's not done, but they just might lose to the Bengals this week because the Bengals.
It's hard to trust them, though.
I'm not trusting them. I'm just saying they're a fun watch. Yeah. Like they can just beat you. They can score.
Yeah, they can score.
And they're not terrible on defense. Yeah. So, what, Aaron Rodgers? You heard about this story?
No, what happened?
So I was actually we can talk about Aaron specifically, but I want to approach it from a Matt LaFleur standpoint. Matt LaFleur is 33-7 in his 2.5 years as the head coach of the Packers.
Do you know how many career wins? Do you know how many career wins Kyle Shanahan
has? How many?
32.
That's jarring, John. But Matt doesn't get talked about that way. Matt doesn't get talked about the way we talk about Kyle at his height. He doesn't get talked about like McVay. He doesn't really even get talked about like Stefanski. And it's because Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback. He gets discredited for it, which if you're him, you would take it. You'd rather people don't talk about you like a genius, but you got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. I think this is fascinating, though, this week and however long it is that Jordan Love plays for the Packers. What do they look like? Does Matt LaFleur – because what is Matt LaFleur? I'm not even saying Matt LaFleur needs his respect. I'm saying I'm interested to see what Matt LaFleur looks like without Aaron Rodgers, because one of the tenets of this offense, right, it's like, average quarterback, you'll be fine. And what's Jordan Love? I mean, it has created, like, the Aaron Rodgers story in and of itself is interesting, but it's created this other just pure football story about the Packers that I think is also really interesting.
Well, here's the thing. When you evaluate a quarterback that's going to be a free agent or a draft guy, if you were Ole Miss's quarterback, I'm watching you play Georgia. I'm watching you play Alabama. Those are the first two games if I'm a general manager watching you play. If you're a free agent, I'm watching you play the best teams possible. If you're an offensive player, I'm watching you play the best defenses. Jordan Love doesn't get to control who he plays. Like this week is the Chiefs. I just Googled yards passing per game. There's only 3 teams that are giving up more yards per game in the air than the Chiefs. It'd be the Miami Dolphins, who are putrid on defense, Seattle, which has been a terrible defense for years, and the Texans, who are terrible. Then it's the Chiefs, giving almost 400 yards through the air game, 395. So you don't have to win. Like, you can't control if Mahomes throws for 5 touchdowns and you lose 35 to whatever. But do you lose 35 to 10, or do you lose 35 to 25 and lead 3 sweet drives and show a bunch of attributes where you go, think how many teams this offseason are going to need quarterbacks. Football team has none. None. Denver hates both guys already. The Texans do not have a quarterback. So I just named 3 that just came to my mind, right? Who knows? Dave Tepper might hate Sam Darnold by the end of the year. Well, could you trade this guy? Like, assuming that Rodgers, you're able to, sign him to a long-term contract. Because before it was like, well, there's no way you could probably even get a second for him. It's like no one's seen him play. He was a huge project. He couldn't even win the backup job. Now he gets to play an NFL game. Like, he can make himself, like, kind of have part of the reason Jimmy was so valued was because he had the start against Arizona and Miami. And you got to see it on the NFL field. You're like, God, this guy could be pretty good.
I'm thinking less about what you could trade him for and more about could he become the guy that replaces Aaron Rodgers? It feels like Jordan Love's been in witness protection for 5 years, John. He's only a second year in the league. He was drafted in 2020.
But we think about quarterback like Aaron Rodgers more like Brady now, like he could play till he's 40 in his early 40s.
He could, but he already threatened to leave this last year or tried to get his way out.
It gives you options. Maybe you can keep him if Rodgers needs to go.
I'm just saying you don't have to decide that. You can just focus on Aaron. This guy's got 2 years plus a 5th-year option left on his contract. I hate to say you're holding him hostage, but you can basically hold Jordan Love if you think he could be the guy.
Belichick did that. Belichick did that with Jimmy, right? Held him on as long as he could.
As long as he could. And because to me, if you think there's a chance he could be the guy, then I wouldn't trade him for a 2nd-round pick next year.
But if he's bad, then none of it. Then it's like not much value to you, and he's got no value.
Exactly, just no value to anybody. But I think his value to me as the Packers is greater than as a quarterback potentially than it is as a tradable asset.
Over under 2.5 touchdowns for him.
Well, he's thrown 7 passes in his career to this point.
Yeah. I mean,
has he thrown a touchdown yet?
No. Well, he hasn't. It's a complete guess.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to say, you said 2.5?
Yeah, so he's got to throw
under. I'm going to say he throws two touchdown passes for Jordan Love this week.
I'm not even confident in the preseason guy. The first ever action he'd got in a real game. I mean, it wasn't real, but for him, an NFL against NFL players in the preseason, LaFleur said after the game, like, yeah, we were planning on playing him in the third half. He got hurt. It's like, I don't even, can this guy make it through a game?
We know nothing.
And let's face it, most people listening to this and most Packer fans, no one watched him play at Utah State. So it's like, we don't really even know what the guy
We watched some of the tape. Big arm.
Yeah,
doesn't it feel like 5 years ago?
Well, it's because we hear his name so much. You know, he's kind of got the Jimmy Garoppolo. Whenever your famous quarterback doesn't want you there, we just end up talking about you a lot.
Yeah, that, and we've never seen him, it feels like. Doesn't show up anywhere.
Well, his preseason got wiped out last year, so that, you know. Then he didn't even dress last season. You know?
That's a part of it. He wasn't the backup quarterback last year. That's right. I've forgotten about that. That's a big part of it. But I don't know. It's LaFleur. It's Jordan Love. It's
Who would you say is what's a bigger must win? Chiefs against Jordan Love, Niners against Colt McCoy. Are they on the same level? Like neither team can lose, or else it's going to feel bad.
Yeah, they're on the same level.
I'd say Colt McCoy might
be three. Niners are one game worse in the win column, but it'd be the 5th loss for either team.
I would say it's worse losing to Colt McCoy because let's say Jordan Love throws for like 5 touchdowns. It's like, oh, goddamn, this guy might be sweet. You know, like Colt McCoy's not sweet. Like we have the evidence is in. Colt McCoy's Colt McCoy.
And there's tape on him.
Yeah,
and it's a
35
divisional
years
game.
Old.
It's a divisional game too. You're right. Cardinals, Niners losing would be worse than the Chiefs losing. Yeah. Although at some point we stop going, nah, don't worry about it. The Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. Because that's my reaction every time the Chiefs lose is, nah, don't worry about it. They're still going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that how you feel about them?
Yes.
Nah, don't worry about it. They're still going to make the playoffs.
Not that confident anymore.
If they lose to Jordan Love, you're going to be like,
yeah.
What? So.
For the Packers, though, and he looks unreal, and you figure it out with Rodgers, what if you get like a 1 and a 2 for him or something?
I don't think Aaron's reliable enough to have any confidence that he's going to be on your team beyond whatever the year is.
No. I'm saying you would only trade him if you extended Rodgers to a long-term contract. The moment you do confident,
that, yeah.
Guy, if you could get a 1 and a 2, you don't trade him to get rid for.
No, if Rodgers? What I'm saying is, I'm not confident that you could ever be confident that Aaron's on your team beyond whatever year he's on your team. That's what I'm saying.
That's where I think you just sign him to the long-term deal.
Yeah, and hope that he doesn't try to get out of it.
Well, once he signed a long-term deal, though, he can't in the NFL.
I know. He can still make life difficult. That's what I'm saying. Because he makes life difficult for the Packers. He's making it difficult right now.
I know. But he's so fucking good. What are you going to do?
Yeah. No, if you get a 1 and a 2, I would do that. The first scenario was a second. Isn't that what you said the first time?
If I sign him to a $150 million extension and I can get a second for him, I have to move on. And who knows? That might be the stipulation. Like, I'll sign the contract. You trade this guy. That was kind of
in and of itself is nuts.
But Tom did that.
I guess.
But he did, and then he left.
Yeah. I mean, eventually he left. But
a couple years later.
Tom had been a much more just reliable member of the Patriots.
I agree.
Like,
and he came after Jimmy's job again. So I'd say Tom's, when it comes to his back, Rodgers is much more petty with other bullshit. Brady's pettiness toward Jimmy and the situation was on Rodgers' level of pettiness. When you force a guy to get traded?
Yeah. I mean, had Tom signed that really long contract that we're talking about Aaron signing at that point in time? Part of it might have been Tom not wanting to sign it because ultimately Tom wanted out. But
yeah.
Is Aaron coming back next week?
We just got to pass.
I guess he could, right?
Yeah.
10 days. He could be back by the next week.
Yeah. I can't even keep up.
Incalculated. No, what was his word?
Immunized.
Yeah. Immunized. All right. But you know whose job I don't envy? Whoever at the NFL is like, we're reviewing the tapes. It's like, wait a second, you're watching 8 hours of security footage?
Well, they did it last year a lot. They did it to the Raiders, right? They got popped.
Yeah, but they're after the Raiders.
But
the guy who does that job is like, Raiders tape today. Derek Carr arrived at 8:07 a.m.
Here's what I think. I think there are teams in the NFL that got nailed last year. The Titans got popped. The Raiders got popped. If I was them, I would be like, fuck you. You better nail this guy. You nailed us. Like, fuck you. And I think that's what's happening right now. And probably just, I mean, if you're whoever, if you're the Rams, you're like, screw the Packers, right? Nail them. It's just, it's a competitive business.
You think Mark Davis is
but I agree.
If
you're like Troy Vincent, you're like, oh, yeah, forward me the PDFs. So the pictures.
You're like it's like the quality control guy, whoever the QC guy of the NFL. That guy's job. It's like, I'll just break it on tape with like the cowboy remote. Like, who is that? Who is that?
Well, one of the rules is you can't eat with teammates.
Tanjas, what's the guy's name?
Yeah, Tanyan. They're not allowed to eat with teammates, and you're like, he's eating with Tanyan.
Yeah. Oh, are they? Tanyan gave him a bite of his turkey sandwich. Tanyan's out.
It's 2022. This is exhausting, but it's just the rules.
I mean, it's not that complicated. All right, Odell Beckham, John, you got a team for him? Raiders?
No, he sucks.
What was the other team I saw for him?
Saints.
Saints?
I'm
where does
Odell.
he want to be? Maybe we need to ask Odell. Odell, where do you want to be?
How about Odell? Just go away. Like, it's over. I'm Odell'd out. Like, he was good once. He's no longer good. He's a pain in the ass. Like, to me, this is like the Browns, the clown show. But this is why is it always something with this guy? It's always something. It is always something, and it's Baker's fault. It's the Browns' fault. It's this guy's fault. Maybe it's just you, Odell. Maybe it's just you, buddy. Now, I did hear someone talk about the video that he was wide open a lot in that YouTube video. I didn't.
Did his dad make the cut up, or did his dad just repost it?
I think his dad just reposted it. Someone else made it.
Yeah, I saw somebody say his dad made it, which to me would be. I assumed it was like Just Bombs or one of those guys on the internet.
Yeah, Beckham Sr.
That Beckham Sr. made it. I'm like, damn. I mean, Odell, we are coming. What are we in year 9? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're in year 9. We're in year 9. John.
That's pretty nuts. When's the last time he had 80 catches?
2016. Okay, now he had 77 and 18. But to your point, I mean, he's had 5,000-yard seasons, but he hasn't had 80. He hasn't had 80 catches since his first 3 years in the league. He hasn't had double-digit touchdowns since his first 3 years in the league, and he hasn't played. He's played 16 games once in the last 4 or 5 years.
His first year in Cleveland wasn't terrible. 74, 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's not a great year, but it's not like just a complete scrub. The last 2 years, now granted he tore an ACL, but 23, 17 catches this year. 6 games, 17 catches. I mean, who is he? Brandon Ayuk?
He's open, John. No one's throwing him the ball.
I'm Beckham'd out. Now, here's what I would not totally discount. Him having like a resurgent year, next year when he gets to pick his team as a free agent.
When he gets to Tampa?
Feels like they got a little too much action.
Is Godwin going to be back there?
I could see that be like a Russell Wilson demand. Like, we don't have enough. It's like, Russell, our best positions are wide receivers. It's going to be Cowboys don't need them.
Chiefs?
Yeah,
Rams?
I could see the Chiefs. To me, that would have Andy written all over it. If will you turn him down? Hey, just 1 year, $5 million will resurrect your career. What's he going to do? Say no?
Yeah.
Hey, guess what I like to do? Throw it, Odell. Those other teams you play on that run it. We don't even have run plays. Even our run plays are a pass action. Our guy tips it or flips it. I could see him on the Chiefs for sure. I bet he's a Chief.
Him and Jackson.
Because I saw someone was like, "Oh, the Saints want him." It's like, "Oh, Simeon's going to throw you the ball, Odell? You hate Baker? What do you think is going down?" Their fullback that also plays quarterback is going to throw you the ball. Like, what? The Saints sound good when you say it out loud. Then you're like, "Wait, who's their quarterback?"
Yeah, I know.
Like, he can draw you some cool plays on the whiteboard, but I don't know if his players can execute them. If I was him and I was cut, I bet the Chiefs would try to sign him right now.
Well, I mean, he's going to get cut at some point, right?
I mean, you'd think, but who knows? It's kind of already weird that they haven't cut him.
How about this, Milkoff? The appearance yesterday by Joe Montana on College Football Live, in which he was quoted as saying, "If I were the Niners, I would have taken Mac Jones. Nothing against Trey Lance, but Jones is more pro-style offense, more used to being in tough situations, pressure situations. Nothing against Trey." How about that coming up on College Football Live? The producer was like, "All right, enough college questions. Hey guys, let's get Joe. Let's get Joe on an NFL topic, please, and we'll go ahead and tweet that out."
I do think in a college football show, you can always talk about like the rookie quarterbacks from sweet schools. Like if I went on College Football Live, and within the first 5 minutes of something, Mac Jones or Justin Fields comes up, like we can talk it, and it can be pretty smoothly. So, and Mac is a pretty just famous college player based on last year, national champion. I mean, hell, he almost won the Heisman. It was basically between him and his teammate. I do wonder if Joe sees a little of himself in Mac Jones.
I got to think that's a part of this, right? But, I mean, now he might be – nothing
Wally
is
pipped
decided.
him. You know, Trey Lance, right? That version of runaround guy. He probably hates runaround quarterbacks.
And who does Steve Young like?
Trey Lance. So if you're Joe Montana, you're not pounding the table for Lamar Jackson types. You saw every day like, oh, I don't give a shit. This guy can run. Think how many times people told him, oh, this guy's more athletic than you, Joe. He's going to take your job.
Yep. And
Joe's like, that,
but throwing the football in with accuracy is the most important part of the job, right? He's thinking about what Bill Walsh told him: throw a catchable football, throw it in front of the guy, or hit him in the hands, whatever Bill Walsh's quote was. But that's probably a part of it. And here's the other thing about this: is this competition, or whatever we want to call it, between all these rookie quarterbacks, is going to play itself out. It has not been predetermined that Mac Jones doesn't turn out to be better than Justin Fields and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. Hell, maybe even Trevor Lawrence. Their careers are in front of them.
It's happened before, right? With a guy like Trevor Lawrence not living up to the hype. Probably more often than not. There's been a lot more Trevor Lawrences that turn out shitty than Peyton Mannings that turn out to be Peyton Manning. Because the top 10 quarterbacks still include Elway, Marino, right? Steve Young, who am I missing? Favre, like this. I mean, all these guys haven't been bumped by. We've had fucking quarterbacks drafted every year for 25 years.
Yeah, Steve came in the league in the 80s.
And Brady
he feels like
I know, and Brady was a 6th-round pick. So a lot of first-round picks are not just a lock.
Yeah, a 6th-round pick a long time ago.
21 years ago.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't. Joe's not nuts. Now, I think what we always remember with these things is how it turns out is different than how it feels on draft day, and there's a value element to it, right? Like if the Patriots could do it over again, would they draft Tom Brady first overall? No, they got him in the 6th round. You wouldn't draft him in the 2nd round or the 1st round. You'd take him in the 6th round. But the value of the day, right? What the ceiling was, part of it is, well, what was Mac Jones's comp? People are like, oh, it could be Brady. It's like, all right, I'm going to need another comp.
Who was Cousins?
Yeah, or Pennington or whatever. Actually, his arm's better than Pennington's. But here's the thing. Even if his comp is Cousins, he's actually not Kirk Cousins.
He's a better athlete.
He's McCorkle. I'm just saying he's McCorkle Jones. He's Mac Jones. He's not Kirk Cousins. And we talked about this the other day on the high end for Trey Lance. If he's really good, no one's going to be like, yeah, but he's not as good as Josh Allen. If Josh Allen's a top 3 quarterback or a top 2 quarterback and Trey Lance is the 6th best quarterback in the NFL, you go, he's a really good player. He's his own person. That's good enough.
But sometimes this, like if Trevor Lawrence had gone to the 49ers, is Trevor Lawrence playing better than if he had gone to the Jags? Of course. I was thinking about this the other day. Drake London shattered his ankle, right? And he's out for the year. And who knows, like the timetable, the combine really isn't that far away, right? It's 3 months. Like I'm sure he's not going to be able to run. He's going to be, by the time he's drafted, more than likely, if let's just say, I'm just going to pick a number, he would have been the 9th pick in this NFL draft. He might now go 21st, just because they're healthier players. You just feel more confident. He might fall a little bit. Do you know what's going to happen? He's going to go to a way sweeter team. It's like all of a sudden he's on the Colts, or he's on the Titans, or he's on the fucking, I was going to say the 49ers, but the Miami Dolphins have their pick. There are some teams with double picks.
The Colts are 3-5. They might be drafted a little higher than you think.
Well, and the Eagles have their picks. So that's the problem this year. A lot of teams gave away their picks. But you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes going at pick for Mac, he got to go to Bill Belichick. But if he ended up on the Bucs, he wouldn't have played, right? Kyle Trask.
No, I'm saying Drake London could end up on the Bucs.
That would be crazy, but it feels like, who knows? I mean, he still might end up going 15. But even if you go 15, sometimes you just end up on just a much more stable team. Like that might be the Chargers, right? What if they just let Mike Williams walk in free agency and draft Drake London? Boom. So it's like Drake London, Keenan Allen, Herbert. And you're like, hey, Drake London, it sucks probably going from the 7th pick to the 17th pick, but it could change your life.
Right.
If Trevor Lawrence fails, I do think a lot of people will blame the Jags.
Yeah. It'll be like the way we used to talk about the Browns.
It happened in the NBA a lot, right? Like I was drafted by the Kings. Fuck, who knows?
Yeah.
Or the Pistons or whoever.
But unlike a lot of the people the Kings have drafted, everybody would have drafted Trevor Lawrence number 1.
Every single human alive.
So, not everybody would have drafted Trey. Not everybody would have drafted Zach. Not everybody would have drafted Max. Some people would have drafted Fields.
Yeah. I think there was he was number 1 on every board. They can say Zach Wilson. I do not believe it. If you were drafting one, you're going to take Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence. I would be. It's easy to say when you're drafting like 28th, be like, yeah, we had Zach Wilson above him. Like, okay, yeah. What would happen if I put you at 1? You're going to take Zach Wilson? I'll bet my ass you won't.
Right.
So
here's what I know. The second that the Patriots drafted Mac Jones, everybody, us included, went, oh.
But he was also, like a lot of people thought that he was, could go there, right?
Yes, I'm just saying the second it happened, you went, well, maybe he's got a shot to just be solid.
He's better than I thought he would be, even as a rookie. But he looks in the realm of what I expected him to become.
And what he has been this year is not where the discussion was never about what does he look like halfway through his first season. It's, in the end, can he be what Trey Lance could be, what Justin Fields could be?
One thing I would have said this in April, and it's wrong, is I would have said I would have rather just traded a 2 for Sam Darnold than trade up and get Mac Jones. Or even if you would have said, well, you get Mac Jones at 12, I'd be like, I'd rather trade the 2nd for Sam Darnold and take a player at 12.
Yeah.
I would have been wrong on that. I would rather have Mac Jones than Sam Darnold.
Right. You absolutely would.
He's better today than Sam Darnold is 4 years into his career. You agree with that?
And you'd rather have him right now than Jimmy Garoppolo? Or is that close? I think it's close.
Yeah, I would just rather have Mac Jones than.
But you'd rather have the rookie, and yeah.
But I would rather have what hopefully Trey can become than both. Now that doesn't. He might not become it, right? It's a lot's incumbent on them to coach him up and figure it out.
I have here, John, my minor league baseball scorebook from 2009. Relevant because Buster Posey's in it.
Yeah.
Can you believe he's retired?
Who's a pitcher?
For this game?
Yeah.
This game is July 27th, 2009. 8,647 in attendance that night for Reno at Fresno.
More people go to that game than an A's game.
I know. The Reno Aces didn't really have anything. You know who pitched for the Fresno Grizzlies that day? Can you read the second name on there? Hold on.
Oh, the dude from PFF.
Steve Palazzolo. How about that? Yeah, Buster hit third that day.
Buster caught Steve Palazzolo?
Buster caught Steve Palazzolo. Yep. Kevin Franzen hit second that day. Joe Borchard hit cleanup that day, hit a home run. Yeah, there you go. Do you think
he's a no doubt about it Hall of Famer?
I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, I understand the arguments, but an MVP, a Rookie of the Year, however many times an All-Star, like clearly one of the best catchers in the game every year that he was in the game. The 3 World Series are not nothing. Face of the franchise. I know some of that stuff doesn't matter, but I just know when I watched him, here's what I remember about Buster, what I will remember about Buster. He wasn't like Barry, where you like every time he comes up, he might hit a home run. I do, and this is not, I'm not just saying this after the fact. If Buster was coming up, I stopped to watch. And I remember it from the first day I saw him in Fresno when he got to AAA, the story with Buster Posey, and he got to AAA in 2009. He was at Florida State in 2008. So he was a
blue chip 5-star guy.
He was the
Golden Spikes Award.
Golden Spikes Award winner.
Yeah.
He was at the College World Series in 2008 when I was there, when Fresno State, watching Fresno State. I didn't see him because I think Florida State lost its first 2 games and were eliminated. But when he got to Fresno in 2009 in AAA, and Baumgartner was on that team too. The story with Buster was that Buster had not hit a home run to left field or to center field. All of his home runs in the minors to that point had been opposite field or straightaway, or I guess they'd been straightaway. He hadn't pulled a home run yet. So it was like, this guy is a really professional hitter. Like, that was part of the deal, right? That it was more than just a watch how far he's going to hit it. It's going to be about, he's going to hit a single on a pitch somebody else would strike out on. And it was true, and it always stuck with me. And he made me watch every at bat. I loved watching his at bats for the rest of his career.
It's kind of weird that, I mean, he's coming off a great season. Like, he was an elite player. I understand walking out on top. Like, obviously the team was really good. It feels like, and I'm not, we're doing this before he talks at 3:00, and I'm sure not going to say anything too crazy. And whatever he says, like, I just wonder, I don't know. It just feels a little weird. Like, did he not like
$22 million?
Well, the Giants had his right, so he wasn't a true free agent. Would the Giants have given him if he was a free agent, hit the open market, someone would give him 3 for $60. Would Farhan do that? You would think the Giants would, but
do you think if he insisted on being traded, they would have traded him? If he said, I'm going to retire, be traded, I would think they'd trade him. I'm going to retire, or you can trade me for something. Yeah. I think they would trade him. Farhan, he's interested in value. You mean I can get something and not pay you?
And listen, as you age, sometimes your perspective changes and your desires change. He took the year off, and they adopted those kids, and he already has other kids. Maybe just his priorities in life, but his priorities in life were clearly on baseball because he fucking dominated this year.
I think
it's a big blow for Kapler and the team. Like, they are not going to be as good without him. They had random pitchers overachieve this year. He's a big part of that.
I think. I wonder if, looking back, like, he took the year off, and kind of built up for this year, and I wonder if he knew the whole time, like, this is going to be it. I don't know if he took the year off with the expectation that this would be it, but like, I'm going to give it all I got one more time, come in fresh, empty the tank, and walk away. I mean, think about it this way. Does he have any more money to make? Does he have anything else to prove? Does he have any more championships to win? Like,
well, he could make more money, right?
Well, yeah, he does have more money to make, but does he look at it like, I could use a few more bucks? Well, if the money's not his motivator,
well, it's not.
And if money's your so if the money's not his motivator, if, like, he's not one of these, like, I got to put up more numbers for the Hall of Fame, if that doesn't motivate him, well, championships, he's won 3. What is he? I need to win 4. You know how hard that is.
Got to play the Dodgers in a playoff series. It was pretty epic.
I can't believe that one of those 2 teams didn't make it to, I cannot believe, John, that one of those 2 teams didn't make it to the World Series. That I just watched the Braves win the World Series.
The Braves had a little of one of those Giants championship teams where it's just like, who, how, what? And it was just guys. I mean, Solar's hitting bombs that are going like Pujols. He hit one over the tracks, and he has a great pimp job.
So great.
I feel for this guy. He gets so close. So, like, Buster Posey won 3 of them. Dusty Baker is like a 75-year-old baseball junkie. I mean, he's like Belichick. He thinks, talks, sleeps baseball, and he's good at it, right? He's clearly, and he gets so fucking close. I mean, he's right there. He's got to thinking, we're going to the World Series. I got a loaded roster. I get this random team from the NL. I don't have to face the Dodgers. It's my time, baby. And then he loses in 6.
Unreal.
I just... For whatever reason, the baseball gods don't want him to have one.
He was just sitting at Evans Diamond at Cal watching his son play. And then the Astros have one of the craziest scandals in the history. There's like, Dusty's got a job. And I know.
He was pretty consistent with those rubber gloves. You know, he loved those rubber gloves.
Hey, shout out to our guy Stephen Vogt, who won a World Series, John, with the Braves.
I saw the pictures look pretty cool.
How about that?
Did you see the letter Jock tweeted? Or Instagrammed, I forget who it was, some famous artist. I don't know what Jock did for him, like maybe gave him some shoes or signed bat or something. And the guy, I forget the exact story, but the line was like thanking him on this. He wrote him a letter and said, "From one bad motherfucker to another." And that was how he signed off.
That's pretty good.
Jock. Is this Jock's second? I guess, was he on the Dodgers last year? Yeah, he was, right?
Yeah, because then he went to the Cubs.
Yeah. So he's a back-to-back World Series champ.
Yeah, back-to-back.
This one probably feels, just because you got to do it in front of people. I guess there were some fans last year, not in L.A., but that place, I mean, Atlanta was rocking. Rocking. Feels like they should have had 2 or 3 in our youth. They're like the Bills.
All right. Mailbag coming up?
Yeah, mailbag. Let's do a mailbag.
You said you feel like the Dodgers should have had?
No, I feel like the Braves in the 90s.
Yeah. They should have. They won the division for a decade plus in a row. Did you see they asked Dusty Baker what he thought of the tomahawk chop, hoping to get like a controversial answer? He's like, yeah, when I see the chop, I just think of Chipper Jones and Fred McGriff coming up, and I get nightmares. That's what I think of too. I mean, really, David Justice. Whew. All their pitchers just shooting 72 and then shoving for 8. Weren't they famous for all taking their golf clubs on road trips, the 3 of them, and their bullpen guys? Mm-hmm. Steve Avery and what are you going to be like? Hey, Greg John, no golf clubs on this trip. They're like 9-0 and 7 straight All-Star appearances. Leo Mazzoni just rocking back and forth. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. Later. Peace. But if you're watching the YouTube, we're not gone because we just have to record a couple ads that will go on the podcast, the audio version of this podcast. So if you want to stay and watch us watch ads, cool. Hit that like button while you're hanging. This is bonus content, John. John, let's take a moment and tell the people about Overland. Overland.com/ham, where you can get deliciously comfortable and well-made, they're not edible, slippers for your feet. What a gift. What a gift to you or a gift to somebody else. I'm glad they're not edible because I eat them, but I don't have to eat them. I just wear them. Overland.com/ham. I love my slippers. They keep you warm. They're very durable. They have this like rubber sole that I can wear outside if I ever want to go pick up, throw the trash away or go get the mail. They're very, very comfortable. They're very, very warm. The sheepskin, they're just well made. I'm blown away. They're my favorite slippers I've ever owned. Better than any Uggs pair that I've ever owned. No bullshit. Ooh, Overland, a family-owned heritage brand that's put its comfort and quality first for nearly 50 years. They've got all kinds of other stuff, like super warm coats, gloves, home decor, all made from sustainable natural fibers like sheepskin, leather, and wool. Overland uses expert craftsmanship to pair the highest quality merino sheepskin, which is naturally moisture-wicking, temperature-regulating, and antimicrobial, with supportive memory foam midsoles in order to make slippers that feel better and wear better for longer. Overland.com/ham. Go get them. Overland.com/ham. Podcast also brought to you by Puesto. Puesto Mexican Artisan Kitchen and Bar, where the food is more consistent than their favorite team, the 49ers. It is always delicious. It is always great. You got so many great options, John. Go eat some Puesto. Yep. Go to Puesto, one in Concord, one in Santa Clara. If you live in Southern California, it started in La Jolla. It's just fantastic tacos. If you want to go on Tuesdays, they have this little deal called Taco Tuesdays. And what happens is after 3 o'clock, tacos are half off, guy. Half off tacos. Think how many tacos you can eat for half off. Incredible deal. Can't recommend it enough. Also, if you're going to the 49er game this weekend, play the Arizona Cardinals, they also play next week on this little thing they like to call Monday Night Football, which the Mannings are taking this week off. They're coming back for that thing, so I'm excited for that. What are we going to watch? Yeah, I mean, both. The third podcast? The ham stream? Monday Night Football, sections 110 and 129, so get on it. I have said it all the time. My personal favorite, the quesadilla, the crispy melted cheese, the braised short rib, the Jalisco salsa, pickled radish, classic guacamole. You can also get the perfect Puesto guacamole, which when we went with our guy Devin from Tito's, we got that as a side because it has the Parmigiano Reggiano with it. It's fantastic. We also got the taquitos, which are tacalongo. They're not taquito. They are largo. Sorry. Plus, they got so many great margaritas, like the Bang Bang Margarita, over 500 tequilas and spirits. Like John said, half off tacos every Taco Tuesday from 3 to 5, plus happy hour, which is every Monday through Friday from 3 to 5, which has great drink specials. And you go on a Tuesday, you can stack up the happy hour special drinks and the Taco Tuesday half off tacos. So go have a good time. SoCal, Northern California, in Levi Stadium, 110, 129, Puesto. All right. I'm ending this broadcast now. Thanks, guys.